and welcome everyone tonight. Thank you for coming out on this brisk day that started out a bit blizzardy, but sun came out, and I'm so glad you could spend today with us, even though we had to spring forward and lose an hour of sleep. I think tonight will make up for that fact. If you're a little tired now, you won't be later. I want to bring a few things to your attention today. We do have some folks to thank, particularly the Don Chisholm Friends of Jazz here at Carytown Concert House, an exceptional group of donors who not only support our jazz programming, but all of our programming here at the house. So a big thank you to them. I do also want to draw your attention to the art on our walls this month. This is an exhibit from the Hannon Center in Detroit. These are seniors who are members of the center, as well as teachers as a part of their art course. So feel free to take a look around, and if you're interested in purchasing anything you see today, you can talk to myself or Elijah, our other staff member here tonight, and we can help you to make that purchase. I also want to let you know about our live streaming. We are still currently live streaming all of our programming at the scheduled showtime, both on YouTube and Facebook. So if you're ever not feeling well, or you're on vacation in Florida, but you can't miss that concert, you can tune in online. And we are asking that folks who tune in online make a donation in lieu of a ticket purchase. So hello to those of you who are online. Please consider making a donation at carytownconcerthouse.com/donate. Those donations help to not only support our artists, continue our mission, but also just keep this live stream programming going. It is no small miracle that after 37 years, we are still here, despite 2 years of a pandemic. And one of the longstanding traditions here at the house has been Ellen Rowe's All About the Trio. And we are so pleased. We had them back here in the fall after the pandemic for the first time live. And they've taken a little short hiatus, but we're really delighted to have them back here in the house tonight for a tribute to Bill Evans. So please welcome to the stage Ellen Rowe on piano, Paul Keller on bass, and Pete Sears on drums.
joke about how I always have trouble with the mics. It's always something new. It's not the house's fault. It's just my fault. Anyway, thank you so much for coming out tonight. This is the first time I think we've done this show in the evening, just trying it out. But our next show we will be back in the afternoon. So this show is it's really a tribute to the compositions of Bill Evans. We will talk, of course, a little bit about Bill and his life, but mostly we want to talk about his music and the profound impact it's had on all of us. So ironically, we did not start with one of Bill's actual compositions. We started with one that he was famous for playing, and this is the beautiful tune, How My Heart Sings by Earl Zinders. And it's very interesting because Earl Zinders and Bill had such a I don't know how you want to call it, but they had a beautiful relationship, and I think it worked both ways. I think that Earl's tunes had an influence on Bill and how he composed and played, and I really think that the way Bill played had a huge influence on how Earl wrote for him. So there's a number of tunes that Bill played throughout his life that were compositions of Earl Zinders. I wrote some of them down. Besides this tune, How My Heart Sings, Elsa, Lullaby for Helen, Mother of Earl, Reflections, Quiet Light. And a couple of the things that are interesting about this tune that Bill incorporated into many of his tunes after this were things like, you may have noticed that we started in 3/4 in a waltz, jazz waltz, and it went to 4/4 on the bridge. And we actually improvised keeping that going. And this, from what I've understood and read, this is the first jazz tune that actually did that, where the players would improvise on both the 3/4 and the 4/4. It was written that way, and everybody improvised over it that way as well. And that's something Bill loved to do. He loved 3/4. Earl Zinders loved 3/4 as well. I love 3/4. Do you guys love 3/4?
Love it.
Love it. Okay. Good. They can continue to stay on the stage and play. That's good. And I'm not quite sure, I haven't really put my finger on what it is about 3/4, but there can be a real spaciousness to it. You can be in a one feel, and you can kind of have this 1, 2, 3, 1, that feel, and then, Paul could start to walk, and then we get, quarter notes, and then it's a little bit more in time. But I just find there's a lot of freedom in how you play with the time and pull it apart over the 3/4 that I really like, and Bill Evans really liked it too, obviously. He wrote a number of tunes in 3, I think, Waltz for Debbie, which we'll talk about later, very early, which we'll talk about. Waltz in B minor, Two Lonely People, Simple Matter of Conviction. All these tunes were kind of hits for him, and all in 3/4 time. The one other thing that is special about this tune that Bill also incorporates in later tunes is the idea that there was a lot of motion, harmonic motion in the beginning of it, and then we got to the middle section, and there was what we call a pedal point, where we just kind of hung here, and the harmonies moved over it. And then we moved the pedal point down. Oh, this is kind of cool. I can play with one hand and hold the mic with the other. Yeah. And then we had these sort of static harmonic sections, and Bill loved that as well. And then the A section came back at the end with more changes. So you hear that in his playing as well. He did study composition at Mannes School of Music after he did his undergrad. So he really got, growing up, and I think this is a good time to mention this, he started with classical piano, and he fell in love with the music of Schumann and Rachmaninoff and Debussy and Ravel and Chopin, and we really hear, I think, some of those elements both in his playing and in his composing. So I wanted to mention that. Okay, so also, How My Heart Sings, besides being one of Bill's favorite tunes, is, I think, the name of the quintessential book on Bill Evans. And if you are Bill Evans fans, which I assume you are because you're here, you should go out and buy this book if you don't already have it. It's called How My Heart Sings by Peter Pettinger. And it's just a trove of information on his life, on all his recording sessions, on his music. It's really terrific. And I want to read one quote. I'm not going to read a lot of quotes tonight because we have a lot of music we want to play for you. But this is specifically about his composing. So he said, and I love this. He says, Evans always carried a small 6-stav composer's notebook in his jacket pocket for writing out tunes, making notes, writing set lists, and general doodling. A new tune was as likely to well up inside his imagination and be set down on the New York subway as it was at the piano. Evans scribbled constantly in these manuscript books. His tunes were firmly rooted in the tradition of popular American song, but with a new kind of constructive sophistication and modulatory flair. We're going to talk about that more. Modulation means changing keys, and he did that a lot. His tunes change keys frequently. His knowledge of the musical literature, all types, from a variety of cultures, was considerable, and he drew from this inheritance, applying himself as carefully and assiduously to his composition as he did to his playing. Sometimes the melody would come first, as in Waltz for Debbie, and sometimes the harmony would come first in a tune like Time Remembered. And I think one thing that's also maybe a bit overlooked, and one of the reasons we wanted to talk about his compositions, is that we think sometimes his composition genius was overlooked because of his amazing piano skills and his amazing gifts as an improviser. So anyway, we are now going to spend the rest of the program playing tunes by Bill Evans. And the next one we're going to play is Funkalero. And this tune, if any of you are Bud Powell fans, Bud Powell was an important piano influence on Bill. This tune somewhat resembles Un Poco Loco. So if you want to go back later and check that, I think you're going to hear some similarities. This is interesting. Pete pointed out to me that this tune is an early tune, a very early tune of Bill Evans. He recorded it first on this important album, Everyone Digs Bill Evans, I think it was on Riverside, 1959. And I think that I learned it off of, well, I was only 2 years old in 1959, so I probably didn't check it out then. But the first time I heard it was on his album, the Bill Evans album, recorded in 1971. And the version we're gonna play for you tonight is pretty much verbatim the way they played it. I transcribed some few things here and there, and we're gonna kind of stick to the form. It's kind of a tune that we think Bill wrote mostly for improvisation. It's just really fun to play on. It's a short form. It's 16 bars long. And where I get the Funkalero title from, some people have said that occasionally it gets played with a kind of a Latin-y, funky flair. I'm not sure that we're really doing that tonight, but check out some of these chords. These, I think, are pretty heavy funk chords. So those are, the first chord is a dominant quality chord, but it's got this great sharp 9 and flat 9 in it. And then the next chord, which I really love, and it sounds to me a lot like Claire Fisher, is another dominant 7 chord, but there's this B natural, kind of like an interloper in the top of it. And then there's also this beautiful sharp 9. Let me play this for you. And now we have a minor chord, but with a major 7 on top. So these are just, fascinating chords to me, and he strings them together back to back with impeccable voice leading, as in how the notes all move from one to the other. So that's one thing I love about this tune. And we're gonna modulate in this tune. Bill modulates on the recording. We're gonna start out in the key of F minor, for those of you keeping track. And then we're going to play a bit on in that key. And at the end of Paul's bass solo, we're going to magically modulate up a 5th. So you see if you notice when that happens. And then we're going to do some trades. And one of the cool things about this tune is the way they traded on it. And we start trading 8s, and then we trade 4s, and then we trade 2s, and then we trade 1s, meaning I play 1 bar, Pete plays 1 bar, 1 bar, 1 bar. And we have some fun doing that. So let me just see if there's anything else I want to say about. Oh yeah, it doesn't start on the 1 chord. It's in F minor, but it doesn't start in F minor, which makes it kind of an interesting tune as well. So there's F minor. Those are the first 3 chords. So it starts with 2 different chords, and then we get to F minor. Anything you guys want to offer up about this on your microphones?
I do. The recording that I fell in love with was Everybody Digs Bill Evans, and it's got Philly Joe Jones on drums. And they were talking about that infidel note. Stan Getz is playing tenor saxophone on it, and the way he played that note, how do I want to say this? I don't really have a word for it, but the note kind of bent is not the right word, but there was something about the effect that note had, how he played it. He did, and it stuck out so much that you just wanted to hear that again, because it's the pineapple note. It's like, that, what is it, the ninth sharp?
Well, there's a sharp 9, and there's a major 7.
That one.
Yeah.
And Stan Getz would just sit on that, not heavy, but it just, it spread over the boundaries of the note. And there was something about that just, you could not forget it. And it becomes an earworm. the way it kind of lays, and so the song goes by, and that record, you know, you got to flip the record over, right? But you're stuck in your head. It's amazing. I highly recommend that record. Everybody digs Bill Evans. It's really amazing.
All right. Thanks, Pete. Thank you. Pete Sears on the drums on that. Paul Keller, of course, on the bass. Okay, so I think I'm going to try standing up here. I feel awkward sitting down and talking to you. Okay. We're going to continue now. We're going to do a little segue. We're going to start with a tune that I've played here before, but since we're talking about Bill Evans' compositions, I don't feel I can not play it again. And this is a very beautiful tune he wrote entitled My Bells. And I play it note for note, the way I learned it from him and the way it's been actually notated. And I think he signed off on the notation of it. So when you hear Klaus Ogerman, the great arranger, orchestrator, did a whole album of with Bill Evans, and this is one of the pieces that he orchestrated. And you can hear that he assigned all the notes that I'm was looking at on the page to the woodwinds in the orchestra. So you know that Bill was really committed to them. We're going to segue from that tune into a beautiful tune, one of the ones I think Bill is best known for, called Turn Out the Stars. Both of these pieces, I think, reflect his classical background, My Bells especially. There are moments in it, and I'll sit down and demonstrate in a sec, where I actually hear sort of the composers like Percy Grainger, some of those sounds that you get with a Percy Grainger band piece. And then there's been other people who call this tune itself just like a Schumann vignette. It's just so precious the way it's presented. And then I also hear in spots Ravel and Debussy sonorities as well. And that tune we think was written around 1965, and that's when Ogerman orchestrated it. Turn Out the Stars was written after the death of his father. And I think in a lot of Bill's music, we hear this very wistful, melancholy, mixed in. There's certainly joy and beauty and happiness mixed in. But a lot of the melancholy and wistfulness, I think, comes from growing up with his father, who was an alcoholic, and then suffering hepatitis, had lots of issues with malnutrition, of course, drug use, which exacerbated everything. And then he had some major losses in his life. His first wife died. His beloved brother Harry, passed away. And so I think we hear some of that sadness in his compositions. And Turn Out the Stars, to me, is a real mix of, we get some of the wistfulness and the sadness. So best if I probably do this. Actually, I think maybe I'll go in order. So here's just a few things I wanted to point out about My Bells. My Bells, this tune is in F sharp, and I just think F sharp has this particularly beautiful quality to it, and I don't think the tune would sound the same in another key. Here's the key of F sharp. It just sounds warm and beautiful to me. Bill used a certain, what we call a mode. I don't need to go into the details of what that mode is, but it's a certain set of notes, and a lot of the sounds that we hear are all taken specifically from that mode, and that's very much quality that you hear in the music of Ravel and Debussy. So here's an example. This is an example both of that modal quality and also of his impeccable voice leading, how notes moved to other notes within a chord. So all those notes are taken out from that F sharp scale. Here's another. Okay, here's an example of what I'll call planing, which is you take a certain sound and you move it down within the mode at a certain distance. All the notes are a certain distance apart. So you can kind of hear that stepwise motion, and it's all within this. So those qualities go into making this tune, I think, absolutely gorgeous. And then some of the qualities that we hear in Turn Out the Stars, he liked this chord very much, as do I. It's a half diminished chord. It sounds, it's not like minor. It's not quite as obvious. Here's a minor chord, which is fine. No problems with minor 7 chords. But to me, that has a kind of a starkness or a possible wistful quality. And generally, that chord is moving towards a minor sound as opposed to, your basic minor chord is often moving towards a major sound. So this tune is interesting because it alternates kind of back and forth between moving from these, there's to minor. minors to major. So you get the wistful, and then you get the happy kind of response. Here's another major. And he just keeps using these sequences, okay? So I think you can kind of hear that's a certain sequence of chords. We call it a 2-5-1 in jazz. Scale degree 2, going to 5, going to 1, and then he repeats that up a third, and this is just the bass motion, and now he repeats it again up another minor third, and then back. And these sequences happen throughout this song, and you would think, oh my God, enough already. You know, how does he make this work? And I think when you hear it, you'll hear the way he uses the melody, the way he chooses the chords that he uses, makes it all kind of come together. So I guess we'll just go ahead and do these, My Bells and Turn Out the Stars. Anything you guys want to add? No. Okay, I guess I've
say something.
Yeah, use them.
I will say I've heard Ellen play My Bells several times. It's beautiful. It's excellent. And every time it's over before I start even paying attention. That's how short it is. Isn't it like only 20 bars long?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Something like that. Okay, there, you've been warned. Don't be like me. Pay attention the first time. It's over like that.
Okay, we're going to continue now, and I'm going to turn things over to Pete in a second.
I want to generalize a little bit more about the concept that Bill brought to the jazz universe. He somewhat validated interpretation of rhythmic going over the bar lines, and this is what Ellen was referring to in the first piece in playing a waltz, where the freedom of the rhythm can expand and contract depending on what's going on around it and how the player perceives it and executes what his idea and reaction it is. So the reason I say validation, coming up as a young musician and trying to find what's going on inside my head and what I had to offer to the music, this music spoke to me because it was like a conversation I wanted to be involved with. There was like I have something to add to that. I think rather than okay, so I can at that point in my learning, which I'm still a student for sure, but there was like a physical type of player and an approach to how the music was executed, and then there was an introspective type of approach. Just kind of the way I think and feel, I fell into this introspective category early on. So when I heard that, it was like mind-blowing for me. And it became a way to participate in the music on a different kind of level for me. So early on, we had a conversation. There's other icons in the music that have made a huge impact like this, like Thelonious Monk. When he plays and when you listen to him, or as a musician, when you participate in that music, it's a thing. It's like it has a feel to it that is perhaps angular, a little bit bombastic, a little bit defiant, lots of adjectives. But it's a thing, and you can hear it in the music. And once again, I would encourage you to, in your listening, to not be a passive listener on some of these things, because then you can really go deep. Like, I'm doing the dishes, and that's Thelonious Monk. But if you are like laying on the couch with headphones, that's like a whole nother ride. That's like a whole Disneyland ride right there for me. So anyway, now we go back to Bill Evans. And being able to understand what that implication of time means became like a whole lifetime of study, where the accuracy of the execution of time by each player really has to be spot on, because things are in, like I'm tossing a ball to Ellen, and that ball is in the air where it's not marked on a grid. So those kinds of things, she's got to catch it on the money, or else things start to get a little bit loose. And when that happens, then you can't really let it go. So anyway, that's what I have learned. So you have to like be so solid in your own concept of time that you can juggle, you can you can add your technique, you can execute an idea and pass it on, and not have an agenda. That's what that music speaks to me. And it's quite fascinating and expansive, because it was like the first time that had happened. So now I'm going to generalize even a little bit more and talk about how these things in reality can happen. So there's a tune that Bill wrote. Ellen knows a little bit about the history of the composition of this. It's called Very Early, and it also has like a bit of an earworm to it. If you're hip to Bill Evans, this is like one of his, to me, it's just, when you hear it, it's like, oh, that is so Bill Evans. Anyway, it's a waltz, so it's got that expansive quality. We're going to play it the way it was intended, and we're not going to like pick it apart harmonically. We're just going to play it for you so it feels. But then we're going to play with that concept. So first things first. Very early. I'm out. There it is. Okay, so that was how Bill, you would hear it on a record. It's just absolutely beautiful, and boy, that's just the perfect melody. Now, how musicians start to roll with different kinds of tools at their disposal, who's on the band. There's a lot of slang that gets tossed around. And this is pretty fascinating for those of you that might be just sitting within earshot of the bandstand, because you might hear some of these roll off of the cat's tongues, like, we're going to change the feel of this. Ellen said to me, go ahead and count it off. Sometimes, if it's, this often happens, okay, we'll play it at old man tempo. There's a hilarious amount of descriptions. But the thing is that the depth of the musician is the immediate conception of like what that means. Because like younger players might not know, okay, play it like a Elvin 12/8. That's like slang that conjures up the sound of how Elvin Jones would play a 12/8 rhythm. Real Afro-Cuban, bombastic. It's going to be really heartfelt, and it's going to be lots. So there's a gazillion of these. Help me chime in with you guys if you got any. A greaser. So that's going to be probably a medium to slow shuffle. And you have to know what that sounds like in your head. You have to just, okay. Got that? That's easy. And there's gazillions of these, and we could go down that rabbit hole. Yes. One of my favorites. I think I even coined this. Play the Kmart beat. That's how old we are. Like, Kmart is not a thing anymore, right? The barbecue beat. Put the shake on it. That sort of thing. It all has a description of like what. And I suppose it's regional as well. So anyway, we're going to change the feel of this. This also, we're going to add a beat and move the tempo forward and put a little Brazilian kind of concept behind it, and play this as a samba. Once again, very early. Just as an example of how things get done on the bandstand. We also had a conversation earlier on about, I believe, our next tune. It is our next tune. Ellen grew up, and she has a lot of the same feelings, I would have to say, that about Bill Evans as I do, how it just kind of like, there was something about that was magnetic to her. And if she wasn't hip to that, but she had the music to play this next piece, she would play it completely different. And so that was quite fascinating.
Yeah, so one of the things, and this goes right along with what Pete's saying, is that we learn this music from respective, artists who played it or composed it. And in terms of Bill Evans, to me, that was a wild thing we just did, to take one of his tunes and do it, change the meter up, which I'm sure he wouldn't have minded, and put a different feel on it. The performances of his music are so iconic, with him at the piano playing his tunes, and that's how all of us learned these tunes. And I wanted to do a brief demonstration. We're going to talk a bit more and play Waltz for Debbie for you, since it's probably his biggest hit. But there's a certain way I understand this song, and it's the way I heard him play it. And I've never really thought about doing it another way. But especially if you're a student and you don't know the song, you see the music. It's just the melody, and it's got chord symbols, and that's all that's there. And it says jazz waltz, and it's in 3/4 time. But there's a lot of different ways that 3/4 time could be realized. And so we're just going to do a little bit of this as if we've never heard the tune before. So, that was obviously a little heavy-handed, but what Paul set up could have been realistically a way to play the tune. What I played could have been a way to play the tune. But if you have heard the tune, then there's only one way to really interpret it. I'll just play a couple bars. It's a tune written for his 3-year-old niece, for Pete's sake. So you probably much need to do that. But it just struck me that all of these songs that I learned of Bill Evans, it would not occur to me to play it any other way than pretty darn closely to the way Bill played it, because it just seems perfect. So we just wanted to demonstrate that, to say there are other ways these tunes could be played, but why on earth would you do it? Okay, so Waltz for Debbie. I think I mentioned, he wrote it in 1953, so we have ended up picking tunes from earlier in his career. That was just an accident. It's just some of his best-known tunes happened to be written earlier in his life. This is another song that is just full of sequences. And again, it wasn't until I looked at it and went, oh my heavens, it's just, all this similar motion, bass motion moving. I'll play a little bit of, just leave this. So here's the opening bass motion. And then it goes chromatically down. And Bill, being such a great lover of classical music, also was really, I think, very caught up in Bach and the voice leading in Bach. And so these sort of descending bass lines are so beautiful. They're kind of often a counterpoint to the melody. In this case, I think they move with it. But these sequences. Now, he could go here, and he doesn't, and this is one of my favorite spots in the tune. So it kind of a deceptive surprise, right? It takes you by surprise, and then we get this beautiful descending bass line. And now we're getting close back to where we started, and now we're back to where we started. That was the first 16-bar phrase. The second 16-bar phrase is going to do something similar, but now instead of going same chord, but he's going to use a different bass note. And now he's going to make that bass line go down. And it's the same chords, but with a different note in the bass, to me it sounds different. It has a different quality. And now a little sequence to get us to this very beautiful moment of light, kind of moment of joy. And now we get on, there's another 16 bars that, as I put it in my notes, kind of piddles around in the key of F. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just it doesn't go anywhere too interesting. This is nice. And all of this motion now is just a deceptive chord here, which is really nice. And now we're getting ourselves back to the home key of F. So just let me play this again because I think this is beautiful. And now we're back to the beginning of the tune again. So those are just a few of the elements, compositional elements in the tune. I don't know if I have much else to say about this tune. Do you have anybody else anything to say about this? Paul?
Those sounds are familiar to us, right?
Yeah.
They weren't when he played them. That's, I think, one of the genius parts is we kind of get used to all this. We kind of get used to this trio playing, the way we play trioing, the way we're trioing. But they didn't used to do that. I remember somebody saying there's piano before Bill Evans and there's piano after Bill Evans. And that goes for the trios, too. This freedom that they're talking about is also grounded in tradition and technique and logic. But again, they didn't play like a trio. Hey, my favorite trio is Oscar Peterson. Ahmad Jamal gets a little free sometimes, but in a different way. Wynton Kelly, trio, fantastic. Sonny Clark, trio. That's like hard-driving bebop. And Bill Evans sometimes would take a bit of a rap. Oh, he's not really a swinger. He's too introspective. He's too dainty. We say bunk. We do, because all you got to do is go and listen to him play, any number of swinging things. Like Speak Low. His Speak Low is crazy. Swinging. He decides to do what decides to do. And so a lot of credit goes to his many sidemen. The drummers, they added to that. Marty Morell. Oh, who's the original guy? Paul Motion. He really dedicated his life to freer music, not swinging music. And what a great choice to have as that drummer, along with Scott LaFaro, jazz history. Eddie Gomez on bass, jazz history. Mark Johnson on bass, right here in Ann Arbor with Philly Joe Jones and Bill Evans. And Joe LaBarbera. I played with Joe LaBarbera. You know what? It was just like as easy as falling off a log, and it wasn't really like I thought it was going to be, like very esoteric, Bill Evans-y. It wasn't. It was like a regular gig with a regular guy. I was like, wow, you played with Bill Evans, and I played with you, so I'm special. Okay, that's what I wanted to say is those chords sound familiar to us, but when he was doing it, nobody else was doing it. He had a special thing, and that's why we're talking about it. That's why we're recognizing it. That's why we're celebrating it. They weren't doing trio stuff like that until he decided, hey, I want to have a conversation with you instead of you play, then I play, and you hump behind me, and then I do whatever I want behind you. No, there was a real conversation going on. That's the first time that ever happened. So some of these things, in a historical point of view, they're important because they were the first time that happened. And for us, that gave us because of our age, that gave us permission to play like this, sometimes even to a fault. I will say that, but there is that because we love it, and that's why we talk about it, because we're passionate about it. That is all.
Thank you. Paul Keller on the bass. All right, we're not going to really talk about this tune. We're just going to go ahead and play it because we haven't really played and improvised as much as we normally do. We've got 3 more for you, and also, just before we do this, we always like to take questions, so be thinking about questions. Yes, Dallas.
First of all, that's my favorite song tune of all time, and boy, did you do justice to it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Picking up a little bit on what Pete was talking about. Can you play it like a samba? Not when you're transcribing and playing, but when you're soloing. To what degree are you channeling Bill Evans, and to what degree are you Ellen Rowe being lifted by a context of Bill Evans?
What a great question. So if there's people in the live stream that didn't hear that, the question is really when we're soloing, are we really just channeling the players, in my case, Bill Evans, or is there like a layer of my own thought that's informed by my knowledge of Bill? And I will say that it's the first impulse I have is to try to sound as much like him as I can, because that's my lodestar for how to play jazz piano. And then generally for me, I'm not sure if it's the same for the other guys, but if I take more and more choruses, I think more of my own, whatever that is, my own vocabulary starts to creep in, and it's still probably informed by Bill because he was a major influence in my life. But no, I know when I first start to solo on some of these tunes, I'm just kind of, that sort of what would Bill play idea. Or if I've transcribed the solo, then sometimes bits and pieces of it are, creeping in whether I want them to or not. But do you guys have a thought about that, Paul? You?
Yeah. And by the way, that bass solo was I don't know what you have to say about it, but I don't know what he would have to say about it, but it was exquisite.
Yeah, agreed. Exquisite bass solo, absolutely.
Accepted. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, one of my favorite tunes as well. When you say, when you're playing, are you thinking about your hero? The answer is, of course, yes. Because that's part of who we are. But every time I play, I find myself doing things that my heroes would not do, or that I didn't hear my heroes doing. And I'm okay with it. Sometimes we change up the tunes to a fault, like we demonstrated earlier. I don't mind that, because every gig is a rehearsal for the next gig. And I am an elephant. I remember what sounds good, and I remember what doesn't sound good, and I remember what's working well with this person and what doesn't work well with this person, and that enters into more than my heroes. Who am I working for? What is the context? What's our goal? That's where my head is at. And besides that, I like to do something above the bare minimum, which to me is play the melody, everybody play until you're dead, and then I come by and mop up, and then we play the head out.
The bass player, the role of the bass player.
That's the lowest common denominator, and we can do that. And it still is a pretty good jazz performance. I like to put a couple extra little things in there. And again, that's where my head is at, and that's where I often get inspired by my heroes, and I depart from my heroes. So when you said, how much are you thinking about your heroes? I say, well, a lot. And sometimes I feel pretty guilty. But, that's how we come up with new stuff, I guess. Find out what's working and what's not.
That's a great question, though. It really is. So I think we'll stop for some more questions in between the next tunes. I hope you guys don't mind. We're going to go maybe a little past our often hour 15 minutes, because we've got 2 students we're going to bring up to play our last 2 tunes for you. But I think right before we do that, we're just going to sneak in a quick Perry scope because we want to. So this is a tune written by Bill Evans for his cousin Perry, it was for a girlfriend named Perry Cousins. That's right. Perry Cousins. Big difference. Not his cousin. At least we hope not. So this is called Perry's Scope. You'll notice a couple things. You'll notice a sequence of chords that are very familiar to us, that we've heard before. But he does a little something interesting here rhythmically, and this we're going to hear more about in the last tunes we play. But he superimposes kind of 4/3 and 3/4, and it's just in a couple spots, but it's enough to keep the tune kind of interesting. So. I'll just say before I bring up our students that type of interactive playing where a bassist and a drummer are soloing together would not have happened without Bill Evans, I don't think. I mean, maybe it would have evolved, but that was really
what I mean, yeah.
one of the big concepts of his trio. So Okay, so this is going to be really fun. One of my very favorite Bill Evans albums, and I wanted to make sure I just say a few things about it. We Will Meet Again was 1979, and this was written right after the death of his brother, beloved brother, and there's a wonderful video, if you haven't heard it, of Bill being interviewed by his brother. Steve Allen does the introduction, and Bill talks for about 45 minutes just about his concepts of music, called the Universal Mind, I believe. Universal Musical Mind, there it is, which I really suggest you all check out. So this tune, or I should say, this album was interesting in that it was a quintet, and it had Larry Schneider on saxophones, and it had the great Tom Harrell on trumpet and flugelhorn. And the first time we rehearsed this piece with the students, trumpet and saxophone coming up, I just lost it. I mean, it was something that took me back to that place and time, but to be in the middle of the music as opposed to just listening to it was really, really special. So this tune is extremely poignant. It's called Bill's Hit Tune, but I think you'll hear the melancholy in it. Bill said himself that it had the quality of a French movie theme if played slowly. There are many Evans-isms in here, the sequences we've been talking about, the minor 2-5-1 chords alternating with major ones, chords that go to unexpected places, all kinds of these altered dominant harmonies. Let me just play, before I introduce the students, the last 3 bars here. I just want to, or 3 bars at the, hold on, shuffle my pages. Here it is. Oh yeah, here it is. Okay, so let's get this right. That in and of itself, that's a beautiful chord. Okay, and that takes us back to the beginning, but that sequence of chords is just remarkable to me. Here it is. So you can be on the listen. Ow, look out. Sorry about the mic. I didn't need that tooth anyway. Plenty more.
I'll never use them.
Yeah, that's right. What else did I want to say? I really don't want to say anything else about that. I did transcribe the harmonization that you're going to hear between the trumpet, the flugelhorn, and the saxophone, and you'll hear all these beautiful thirds and sixths, and that's definitely from Chopin. So you can be listening for those. So anyway, I invited 2 players, young players that I've gotten to know really well in our program at Michigan. They're both juniors now in the program. They're both East Coasters, which I love. Our saxophonist Connor Hoyt is from Foxborough, Massachusetts. And our trumpet player Ryan Venora is close to where I grew up, Hartford, Connecticut. They've both been playing lead in the jazz ensemble. I'm very fortunate to have them for 1 more year. But they agreed to come in and play these last 2 tunes. So please welcome Connor Hoyt and Ryan Venora. Connor Hoyt, Ryan Venora. Whew. Yeah. Okay, we have one more piece for you, but before we close up, once again, just like to see if anybody has questions. You can ask these guys questions too. It'd be good for them.
I have a question.
Great.
Can you comment on Bill Evans's albums with Tony Bennett?
Oh, can I? Those albums were seminal to my understanding of how to accompany a vocalist. I had a friend of mine when I went to college, a wonderful singer and now a librettist named Gene Shear. We transcribed like the entire album, the first album, and did a recital. Basically, I'm playing pretty much note for note what Bill played as best I could, and it's a genius. I mean, I still to this day don't quite understand the level of communication between those two. And say what you will about Tony's vibrato, he is still one of the best people on the face of the earth to render a song. And putting the two of them together, I mean, I learned how to accompany vocalists because of those albums. So I can't say enough about them. Yeah, the Tony Bennett, Bill Evans albums, if you haven't heard them, you must run out and hear them. Yeah.
I also recommend, after you've gotten a taste of what Bill Evans is about, Live in Tokyo. That record was a game changer for me. I remember like where I was, what I was wearing when that was on. It totally just blew me away. Live in Tokyo. Check it out.
Good call.
Bill Evans has long hair.
Oh, yeah, on that album.
Oh, that was the weirdest part about the whole thing. There he was, with hair down to here.
Yeah.
What's this going to sound like?
Still sounded amazingly good, right?
It sounded like he had long hair, though.
Okay, and there you have it.
12-tone tune, too, right?
Yeah, 12-tone, right? 12-tone
Right?
tune,
Come
yeah.
on, long hair.
Yeah.
That's long
He's
hair
a
music.
darn hippie. You heard it here first. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Could you explain the last 5 chords in Waltz for Debbie, that beautiful transition at the end?
Oh, okay. Paul is just. I'm going to let Paul. Do you want to take this one?
One of the
I know
great
you love
all-time endings, right? Isn't it awesome? We don't know
Yeah.
what it means. It just sounds good.
It's a pedal point, but it's got
Where is it?
diminished chords over the top of it. It's the way it moves over the pedal point.
You mean the whole last bit? The whole last bit, the whole coda is great.
Talking about Waltz for Debbie, right? Yeah. So. And then,
To me, that's just 3, 6, 2, 5. That's basically what it is, but it's reharmonized. That's how it functions.
yeah, exactly. But it's the voice leading. It's every note moving where it needs to move is part of it. And then the chords at the end, which I'd forgotten existed until I looked at this lead sheet, which is also genius. Come on, just play the coda?
Yes.
And one more time. Okay, chord that surprises you. Here we go with some more surprises. Yeah, so those final chords are, it's hard to describe how they work. Yeah, there's no real explanation for that. And then this moves down a step, and then we have a 5-1 to get home. Yeah.
They're all major 7 chords except for the last chord, which is the C7 sharp 9. That befuddled me for years.
Right, what's it doing there?
What is that cool thing?
Yeah.
And that was the first time I ever stopped and think. Quit thinking about what the chord is. What is the melody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Play the melody. Just play only the melody. I mean, you listen to it differently when you just listen to the melody,
Yeah.
and then you put the
Yeah.
bass note in, right?
Yeah. It's an interesting way to get from here to there. That's for sure. It's a great question.
I don't know what it means. Do you?
No,
No, it's just a bunch of no.
not a clue.
Except for the very end, which is 2, 5, 1.
Right.
GCF.
Right. Great. Any other
Off the melody.
questions for us or for the young men standing up here to my left? Okay, well, barring that, we are going to close with a tune that Bill Evans wrote, and it became kind of a theme tune for him. It's called Five, and it really gets at this sort of Dave Brubeck-y type idea of playing with the time. So the time is sort of, well, let's say it's actually recorded on his first album as a leader in 1956. So this is another early tune, and it shows the influences of, I think, a little, Stravinsky and some of the modern classical composers that he was listening to. It shows, I'm going to read off my notes, shows Bill's fascination with displacement of notes over the meter. So we're in 4/4, but he is interspersing these phrases that work conventionally in 4/4 with groupings of 5, so 5/4, and then the bridge is actually groupings of 4/3. So it's a tricky head, and I just suggested to these guys a day or so ago that maybe it would be fun for them to play it with us. So they have decided to jump right in. So this is going to be 5. And the nice thing is that it's kind of a contrafact in a way, because it's written over the chord changes to I've Got Rhythm. So you will hear rhythm changes when we're doing the improvising. We don't need to worry about 5/4, though I suppose you could do that if you want to. But we'll just be playing over rhythm changes. But before we end, I just want to say my usual thank you to the wonderful staff at Carytown Concert House. Abby was here tonight, and Elijah, and of course Monica, the wonderful artistic director. They just, what they continue to do here never fails to amaze me. The amazing programming, the amount of it, the variety of it. Also, big thank you as well to the Don Chisholm Friends of Jazz, and Dallas and Barb, and a number of members of that group are here tonight, and we thank you very much for your continued support. And we'll do a little plug. Our next show is April 3rd, back at the 2 o'clock time slot, and it's a tribute to McCoy Tyner. So we hope you'll come out for that. We'll talk about McCoy and his life, and play some of his music and his tunes, and have another student come up who's going to play some McCoy solos for you. So anyways, this is 5. We thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you so much. Connor Hoyt on saxophone. Ryan Venora on the trumpet. Pete Sears on the drums. Behind me, Paul Keller on the bass. I'm Ellen Rowe. We thank you so much for being here tonight.